Shedeur Sanders injury update. Browns coach gives news ahead of Saturday preseason game. Browns rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders has joined his fellow QBs on the injury train after suffering an oblique injury that will sideline him for now. Just as Cleveland Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders was gaining momentum, he suffered an oblique injury that will keep him on the sidelines for their second preseason game. Sanders has been on a quest to prove he deserves not only a spot on the roster, but to move up on the depth chart. Despite his phenomenal debut in the Browns' first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers last week, Sanders remained the QB for behind Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dillon Gabriel. He would need to do more than have just one good preseason game. Unfortunately, he won't get the chance to prove himself in their second though, thanks to the injury. Browns coach Kevin Stefanski says Shedeur Sanders is day-to-day. As Pickett and Gabriel are dealing with injuries of their own, Shedeur was set to get the start for Saturday's game against the Philadelphia Eagles, if they were still not well by then. But on Wednesday, he suffered the injury during practice and sat out of team drills. Now, he's unlikely to even be able to play on Saturday. Ahead of the Browns' joint practice with the Eagles on Thursday, coach Kevin Stefanski provided an update on Shedeur's injury. "You know, if it's a right guard you can play through that," said Stefanski. "When it's a quarterback, you kind of need that muscle to throw. So, unfortunately, gonna put him down for a little bit here. We'll treat it day to day and see how it responds, but want to be smart, 'cause he's a thrower, so you can't push that thing." Gabriel has reportedly been recovering well, and is expected to get the start on Saturday instead, which would be his debut as the rookie sat out last week with the injury. The plan was always to give both of those guys a start in the preseason, so we'll see how it shakes out, Stefanski said. The locker room smelled like hot tape and coffee, the familiar perfume of work that had to be done. Outside, rain stitched the stadium glass with small, methodical holes. Inside, voices moved in that low-register teams use when the season is still a promise instead of a verdict. Shedeur Sanders sat by his locker with a towel around his neck, the bandage at his temple a quiet punctuation to the day's story. He wasn't alone. Teammates drifted in and out like actors between scenes, offering quick words, quick nods, small kindnesses that carry louder than any headline. He listened more than he talked, head tilted, eyes doing the math of what practice would feel like tomorrow, what pain might mean the next play, and what patience might mean the next season. At mid-afternoon, the coach stepped up to the podium in the media room, the room already humming with the rattle of recorders and the shuffle of notepads. Cameras angled, pens poised. For a coach, every word from that podium is a chess move. The press conference shapes expectations the way film edits shape emotion. "We've been cautious all week," he began, voice even as the fluorescent lights. "Shedeur took part in limited reps today. Didn't see anything that concerned us structurally, but we have to be mindful of how he responds to contact and repetitions. We'll continue to monitor him through tomorrow's walkthrough before we make the final decision for Saturday." It was a measured update, the language of stewardship. Not a promise, not a denial. A hinge. Reporters laced their questions with urgency. "Will he play Saturday? How's the shoulder?" The head coach answered with the same steady rhythm. Progress, monitoring, timeline. He talked about test results and comfort levels, about trust in the training staff, and the value of having a player available for the entirety of the season over one exhibition. The team's medical staff, a small constellation of expertise and empathy, chimed in off microphone. Throwing progression is one thing. Tolerance to contact is another. For quarterbacks, especially, the brain rewrites its timing after an injury. A subtle recalibration that might not show up on scans, but will on the third quarter when fatigue sets in. Back in the locker room, players reacted in ways that told more than quotes could. A veteran offensive lineman clapped Shedeur on the shoulder with the kind of firm, unshy gesture that reads as both reassurance and command. "Take the time, man. We need you all year." A rookie wideout lingered, watching the way Shedeur zipped his cleats. A study in ritual as much as preparation. There is a peculiar theater to preseason injuries. Every move is a subplot. How the player walks, the tempo of warm-ups, the detail of a throw that lands just a fraction short. Coaches track these microplots like film editors, the tiny fragments that shape a narrative. A quarterback who trims his release time by a heartbeat in practice might just be the difference between playing and sitting. A flinch on a simulated hit could close the book on a Saturday cameo. The coach's update did something else, quietly. It anchored the room. He spoke of long-term availability and season planning, nudging everyone away from the bait of immediate drama. "We want him to be healthy when it matters," he said. "Preseason is about answers, but some answers come from patience." Shedeur left the locker room for a moment and walked the empty sideline, helmet under his arm, rain now a soft percussion. The stadium was a bowl of muted echoes, practice cones like tiny islands, yard lines stretching like ruled paper. He took 5 throws with an assistant, a short, clean sequence, read, step, release. The motion was fluid. The cadence was familiar. Still, the smallness of the bandage kept a hum of caution in the background. That night, social feeds would churn with hot takes and hopeful tweets. Some voices would demand he play Saturday. Others would praise the coach's conservatism. But inside the locker room, the takeaway was simple and practical. One of the trainers, who had seen dozens of careers bent by haste, shrugged and said, "It's not whether you play Saturday. It's whether you play 17 games." The line landed with the solidity of truth. Saturday's kickoff was still a day away, and the team chose to let process dictate decision. They would inspect the tomorrow walk-through like a craftsman reads grain in wood, patiently, deliberately, with an eye toward building something that lasts. As lights dimmed and the stadium emptied into the rain, Shedeur tucked his helmet under his arm and met a teammate by the tunnel. "Whatever happens," the teammate said, "we'll be ready." Shedeur's nod was both promise and pact. The coach's update had given news, yes, but it had given something else too, a philosophy. In the small theatre of preseason, urgency is always an actor waiting in the wings. Wisdom, the coach implied, is the director who keeps the scene from collapsing. For Shedeur Sanders, the next play might be Saturday, or it might be a later page in the season. Either way, the team had chosen the long version of the story, the one where decisions are made not for the headline, but for the whole book.